this morning. Mrs. Olson, would you mind? Exodus 20:16.
Yes. Can't read this.
Why, are you illiterate?
Well, of course not. It's written in some kind of foreign gibberish.
It's not gibberish, it's German.
Well, because I can't read German doesn't make me illiterate.
I agree with you. And by the same token, I think you'll agree with me that not being able to read English doesn't make Mr. and Mrs. Schiller illiterate either. As a matter of fact, far from being illiterate, Mr. and Mrs. Schiller speak 2 languages, which I think is more than most of us in this church can claim. There is someone else in this church that speaks 2 languages. Mr. Sterling Murdoch. Mr. Murdoch's second language is that of his newspaper, The Pen and the Plow. It's a language made up of half-truths, innuendos, and outright lies. It's the language of yellow journalism.
I do not think church is the proper place to discuss this sort of thing.
And I most certainly agree with Sterling.
Well, I don't. I think it's a perfect place. I don't think there's a better place in the world. Would you sit down, Mrs. Olson? When I talked to Mr. Murdoch about the harm that his newspaper was doing, he shut me off. He claimed his right to freedom of the press. Well, as I see it, freedom of the press doesn't give anyone the right to print lies that blacken a person's name and cause pain. And that is exactly what the Pen and the Plow is doing, in direct conflict with the text that I chose this morning. The 8th commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. But Mr. Murdoch told me that is the language that you all want to read. And apparently he's right. And I've asked myself over and over again, why do you continue to support that paper? Do you derive that much pleasure from the pain and suffering of others? Or is it because it's not you that's being hurt? When you go out and buy that newspaper on Saturday morning, you are supporting and encouraging the very sins that you decry in this church on Sunday. Well, I think it's time that we begin to practice what we preach inside this church, outside this church. On the streets of Walnut Grove, on our farms, in our homes, with our friends, our neighbors, and our loved ones. With every human being everywhere. In the name of God, think about it. Shall we rise and sing What a Friend? What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer.
Of course, we're not open usually on Sunday, but if you stop by after the service, I've got that item that you ordered.
Oh, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer.
The pen and the plow went out of business a month later, and Walnut Grove got back to normal. Pa hopes someday we'll have another newspaper, a real newspaper that prints the truth. Freedom of the press, Pa says, is as important as all our other freedoms, and should never be abused.